Hi teachers! Today we're going to go over the arts integration strategy, sound accents. Now before I get into this card, I'm going to be real with you and say it doesn't sound super user-friendly, but I'm going to break it down for you. I'm going to show you some tweaks that I think make it a little bit more digestible and user-friendly. And I think this can be a really practical card if we think about it a little bit differently from how it's written on this card. So bear with me, here are the instructions. Identify and place emphasis on important words in poetry by adding sound textures when reading. Divide class into small groups and give each group one stanza of a poem. As a group, the students choose the most important word in each line of poetry. Add a sound to the word as it is read. Students may use instruments or create sounds from the things they find in the environment, such as crumpling paper, fanning book pages, or tapping a pencil. So your students are adding sounds to parts of poetry and then performing it for the class. That just seems like a lot, but I'm going to do a super mini lesson to show you guys what an accent is, and then I'll apply that to poetry like this card says. Then I have a few more really practical exercises to make this more usable in the classroom. Let's get started. Okay, so here is a super short mini lesson on what an accent is. In music, an accent is a note that has more emphasis on it than the ones around it. It's usually played a little bit louder or stronger, and it's marked with a symbol like this. It looks kind of like a greater than sign or a triangle on its side. This accent shows that that note is a little bit more important than the ones around it. And we're going to listen to that in this little clip of Rite of Spring. This is a ballet by the musician Igor Stravinsky, and it's going to start with a few seconds of this old lady you see on the screen now. But then you're going to see some dancers in the background, and they're going to be jumping up and down to actually visually emphasize the accent in the music. Let's take a listen. So hopefully you got to see the dancers. They were jumping and they actually jumped higher or stronger when there was an accent in the music. Now you can use this as a good illustration for your students because it connects the aural of listening to the sound with the visual of the dancers jumping. Now that we have an idea of what an accent is, let's apply that to some different content. We'll start with a poetry example like it suggests in the card, but then I have a few others. All right, so we're going to start off with a poetry example, and I've selected the poem Since Hannah Moved Away by Judith Viorst, where I'm just going to read you the first stanza. The tires on my bike are flat. The sky is grouchy gray. At least it sure feels like that since Hannah moved away. In the poem you see to the side of me, I started marking some words with an accent mark. Remember, an accent looks like this. It's a greater than sign. And those are the words that I'm going to choose to add a little bit sound or emphasis to. All right, the first one is flat, and I'm going to use my slide whistle sound. The tires on my bike are flat. Just a kind of that feeling of down or deflating. The sky is grouchy gray. For grouchy, I'm going to use a crumpled paper. The sky is grouchy gray. At least it sure feels like that since Hannah moved away. And my thought for away is to do like a vocal sound, like a sigh, or maybe even a whiny sound and crying. Since Hannah moved away. Here's that whole stanza together. The tires on my bike are flat. The sky is grouchy gray. At least it sure feels like that since Hannah moved away. All right, now that's a quick example of adding a little bit of sound accents to poetry, but honestly, I think there's way more that we can do with this integration strategy. So another idea is to think of an accent as just like what's more important. What are things that need to draw your attention to? If you're thinking about this like a math strategy, then think of a complicated word problem. And we all know what the most important aspects of that paragraph are telling kids to solve the problem correctly. Think about the words like for adding and subtracting, or whatever property they're using. What numbers are most important? If you teach kids the accent, then they can go through their word problem and mark it with an accent to show that that's the important information they need to solve a problem. Another quick idea for using the accent is thinking about vocabulary choices in student writing. If students are writing whatever, you want them to pick more rich vocabulary that brings their writing to life. So instead of using words like sad, maybe they could use depressed, or instead of mad, enraged. So thinking about how to add more powerful accents to their writing with word choices. Those are just a few quick ideas. As always, feel free to reach out, and I'm sure we can come up with a few tweaks to make this accessible for your lessons. Have a great day.